everyone. Okay, today what we're going to learn for the second part of chapter 27, differentiation and gradient functions, is stationary point of a curve. Okay, now consider a curve, right? A point in a curve can be stationary when the gradient is equals to 0. Okay, when they appear that gradient equals to 0, what happens is your curve may have a maximum or minimum point. Okay, now we look at the example now. Okay, in this example, okay, question say that every maximum minimum point on a curve y equals to fx is a stationary point. Okay, now at this point, what is your f prime x? First of all, we differentiate these functions. Okay, x cubed minus x squared minus 2x. Okay, when I differentiate this question, this function, I will get 3x squared minus 2x minus 2. Okay, once we have done this part, right, how do we determine the maximum point and minimum point? Because when this question, they will show you the maximum minimum point. What if we don't have any graph? Okay, this maximum point and the minimum point also we classify as stationary point. That means what is stationary point? Stationary point meaning is a point where it changes the directions. Okay, same as this one. Okay, this minimum point also our stationary point. Okay, now first I want to introduce the first method to find out the stationary point. We call it as first derivative test. Okay, what is first derivative test? For first derivative test, first of all, right, when after we differentiate our functions, okay, now we need to make a table, okay, as the diagram show. Okay, first time when we work out this part, right, we have to find out what is the left point from the graph, right? Here, before we stop at maximum here, we need to point out any point to work out the value. Okay, so for this question, maybe I choose x equals to -1. Okay, you will notice sub inside your f prime x, so 3 bracket -1 square minus 2 multiply -1 minus 2. Okay, from here, right, I will get my answer for my gradient is positive. So I write down positive. So when my gradient is positive, what happened? My gradient of the tangent is going up. Okay, when we have gradient of the tangent flat, right, that means my maximum point for the gradient of the value will always equals to 0. Okay, so next part, how do we know our left point? Okay, for the left point, right, okay, all the way from right point, to before we hit to maximum value, we can take any value to work on our gradient. Okay, first of all, I will take a 0 from x. So x equals to 0. So what is my f prime x? So my f prime x is 0. Okay, from here everything is 0 minus 0 minus 2, -2. So because my f prime x is -2, so it will create me a negative tangent. Okay, thereafter, what about next part? Before I hit to minimum point, okay, all the while my gradient is negative. So I can transfer my -2 to this side, and up to my minimum point, right, my gradient actually equals to 0. Okay, go up to the right point. I can choose any value. Okay, let's say I choose 2. Okay, what happened to my f prime x? So I get 3 bracket 2 square minus 2 times 2 minus 2. Okay, from here, right, I get 6. Okay, I get 6 for my value, so my tangent to the curve is going up. It's a positive. Right, that is called first derivative test to determine your maximum and minimum point from the curve. Okay, come to stationary point, we actually, whether the stationary point have maximum or minimum, okay, we actually have 2 methods to determine it. First of all, we call first derivative test. But the second one I'm going to introduce is called second derivative. Okay, what is second derivative? Okay, let's look at the question now. Okay, in this question they say the curve has the equation y equals to x squared minus x. Perhaps maybe you need to take out your personal notes and jot down these questions. Okay, first of all, they ask you to find the stationary point. Okay, before finding the first stationary point, right, what we need to do is, we know that if they have stationary point, you need to work out the gradient, which is gradient of the curve always equals to 0. Why? Because in this quadratic curve, okay, they are talking about this point. Okay, this point, I will have dy dx equals to 0. My tangent to the curve is equals to 0. Okay, so I start to differentiate dy dx. Okay, from here, I will get 2x minus 1. So next step, because I know finding stationary point, I always need to let my dy dx equals to 0. Why I need to do that? Because I need to use dy dx equals to 0 to find out my x coordinate. So I will put 2x minus 1 equals to 0. From here, 2x equals to 1. My x equals to 1 over 2. So from here, I know my x coordinate is halved. Okay, that half is actually represent my x coordinate of the stationary point. But this is not enough yet, because they are asking you to find the point. So the next step, what we need to do is, we need to substitute my x equals to half into my y equation in order to find my y coordinate. So y equals to half square minus half. So from here, I get 1 over 4 minus half. So here, my y actually equals to negative 1 over 2. So I can conclude that, okay, my stationary point okay, is half and negative 1 over 2. Okay, what is the next point? Part B. Determine the natures of the stationary point. Okay, first of all, when I draw this curve, right, I know this is a positive curve, so it's create a smile curve. But in fact, right, in the real example, the real question, they are, when you don't know how is the curve look like, the nature of the stationary point, so you have to find it. Okay, so nature of the stationary point here is referring, you need to determine either your point is a maximum point or a minimum point. Okay, to work out this part, right, in your first derivative, my answer, I get 2x minus 1. Okay, to determine the nature of the stationary point, we have to differentiate one more time in order to get my stationary point. So come to this question, I will differentiate second time. That is called second derivative. So the symbol will be calling d2y over dx squared equals to 2. Okay, I want you to refer to the notes in your page 4. Okay, there they explain whether your second derivative positive is a minimum point or maximum point, but I will make a summary later on. So when we have second derivative, right, I will have positive value. If I have positive value more than 0, okay, I can conclude that, okay, this my point, stationary point of half and negative half is a minimum point, because they give you positive value. Okay, they will give a reverse meaning. That means you have to write down, therefore okay, half and negative half is a minimum point. Okay, okay, please complete page 8, question 1 and 4. Answer also I attach in the handout. Okay, now so I would like to make a summary for this part as well. Okay, so let's look at the summary. Okay, what we're going to summarize. Okay, always remember, number 1. Okay, first step, if I want to find out stationary point, okay, the step is part 1. First, we need to find dy dx or f prime x. Okay, part 2, we have to let dy dx equals to 0. Okay, why? To find, okay, coordinate of x. It probably will be coordinates. It may be have 2x value. Okay, after that, C, we have to substitute okay, our coordinate of x into the equation. Okay, either y or fx. Okay, D. After we work all this, okay, form okay the value of x in xy coordinate. Okay, that is for stationary point. Okay, second thing, when we want to find the natures of the stationary point, okay, there are 2 methods of working out. Please refer to the first and second example. Okay, first method we call first derivative test. Okay, second example we call it as second derivative. Okay, how do we write second derivative? Second derivative, right, we can write as d2y over dx square, or we can write f double prime x. There are 2 ways of writing it. Okay, now when we find our second derivative, if our second derivative d2y over dx square is more than 0, the condition for natures of stationary point. If they are more than 0, that means we have positive value. Okay, that gives us we have a minimum point or minimum value. Okay, number 2. If our second derivative d2y over dx squared less than 0, that means they give us a negative value. What happens is we will have a maximum point or maximum values. Okay, you will come across when you have two stationary points. Two stationary points also may give you positive value and positive value, or maybe negative value or negative value. Okay, I want you to use this hint to find out what is the meaning of point of inflations. Okay, so in next lesson you have to tell me what is point of inflations. Sorry. Thank you. Bye.